tell us, who are you?
I'm Joe Sam. I'm an entertainment and feature reporter here in Columbus for ABC 6 and Fox 28. And we are also making sure that we want to put out that I'm an instructor at the Ohio Media School of Columbus campus.
So, Joe, how did you get into media?
It was always a challenge trying to figure out what I wanted to do getting into college. I first started my college career off going into government because I like to talk, I like to argue, so I wanted to be a lawyer. I got into government at McNeese State University, and when I interned in the courthouse, I walked inside the courthouse and I said, this is not for me. It was boring, it was drawn out. I knew I loved the talking aspect of it, and I liked the research aspect of it, but the time frame to get all of that together was not moving as quickly as I wanted it to. I like a strict deadline to really push myself. So figuring out where is the industry that I can do this in and really enjoy it. I spoke with one of my mentors who I would always like to push out there. His name is Jonas Vanderbilt. He's also a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. And he told me, what else do you like to do? You love to talk, you love to perform. Where can you showcase that? And I did so by finding communication. And once I found communication and I did one thing as far as speaking to an audience and really giving them a story and saw how it inspired them, news reporting, television, media was where I needed to be. And that's exactly what I went into. It didn't become a bigger picture until the loss of my 2-year-old nephew. And once his story started to take off, he died from child abuse at the age of 2 years old. And it was a devastating story. It really impacted my family and I to the fullest. So television, communication was a way for me to release that. Storytelling was a way for me to showcase the feelings that I was having at that time and frame and how I can overcome that. And I saw that that's what it does for a lot of people, being able to tell their story and release those emotions and feelings and having an outlet, having somebody to listen to their story. That's when I knew that this industry was for me. And now every day that I do a story, I think about my nephew and how it can impact another person's life.
So what is the first job that you have?
The first job I had, surprisingly, was in radio. I had my own radio show. It was called The Inbox. So I had people, it started as a campus radio show, and I had people inbox me. That's when Facebook was really starting to take off. I had people inbox me questions or any type of problems they were dealing with, coming up with some types of a solution to solve these problems. And every day we did the show, we had some intellect, different professionals come on to answer those questions for them. And it grew into something bigger. I had Max 94.1, a local radio station, reach out to me and ask me to come on as a local personality. So we started working with Max 94.1, and my professor, Dr. Cable, who's another mentor. I'm going to be giving out mentors throughout this entire thing. A lot of people have crafted my career and showcased where I need to be. He saw something in me and he said, you know what, you need to take this to TV. And my first job in television was as a radio and TV production assistant. It had a fancy title. It was called News Content Specialist. But the only thing I did was roll the prompter. So I just rolled the knob, but I was telling everybody back at school that I was on TV. I had the leather jacket that I would go in on. But it made me feel good just being in that environment and seeing the big lights and the cameras and the TV screens in there and just showcasing that you can really make something out of your life. You don't have to work at a fast food place all your life or a retail clothing store all your life. You have bigger plans and bigger purposes for yourself. That had to be the first job that I had that really showcased that I can do something bigger. And I moved from there to production as far as the TV cameras, working the studio cameras. I wanted to learn more. I was hungry and I was eating as much as I can take in there because I didn't want anybody to stand in my way and stop me from my goal. So we started working as a producer. Then we moved up to be a photojournalist. And how I got on air, because I was not good at all. It's been a progression. I was horrible at TV reporting. I was good at storytelling, horrible at TV reporting. The cameras frightened me for some reason. As soon as I saw the red light, I couldn't speak. But I had to fake it till I make it. And it was a one opportunity that came around and I couldn't pass it up. There was a house fire that happened. I was working as an editor at the time. No reporters were in, so they needed someone to go and film it so we can say we were first on the scene. So I offered my services. I just graduated and they took me in. They said, you know what, we're going to give you a shot and let you go out there and report on it. And I tore that up. I made it work. I sounded professional. I looked professional. I wasn't afraid because I knew that this was my one and only opportunity to prove myself. So I had to do something about it. And once that happened, the news director called me into his office and my heart was pounding. I was like, oh God, I've done something wrong. And he offered me a reporter position. And that's where it all kicked off. The rest of it is history.
So let's talk about some of the topics back then versus today. What's the difference?
It's a lot of controversy now, as you can already imagine within the world. We had a lot of stuff that was buried underneath a lot of dirt and gravel. Now all of those issues are starting to come back out. The stories are starting to progress even more and more. A lot of racial issues, a lot of political issues that we live in right now in this day and age. And it's even harder for the reporters to storytell and to articulate themselves because the day and age with social media. People are taking pictures and videos and they're making up things that we wouldn't normally report because we have to build facts before we go out there and report any type of information. But now everybody can be a journalist. Everybody can be a reporter because all they have to do is pull out their phone and start talking about what they see happening. And the stuff that they're saying may not be completely factual, but people believe it because it's the first thing that they're seeing and they have video that showcases what goes on. So a lot of police officers are suffering from that. There are bad cops, but there's also a lot of really good cops. And it's horrible that sometimes the bad have to take over the good and the good have to suffer for the bad and what they're doing. Those stories are hard to tell because you don't want to be on the wrong side of your viewership. Some people may lose you as a viewer or as a reporter because they don't want to watch you anymore because you're not representing them. You're protecting this police force. And those are some of the harder stories to tell. We also see a lot of stories with the racial issues, racial injustice. And telling those stories is important to have someone like myself, African American, in the community because some of these people in the community will not talk to any other type of reporter because they say you don't understand our struggle, you don't understand what we're going through, and you don't have the same type of fright that we have when we're pulled over by a police officer. So being able to showcase that I have those same issues, I deal with those same issues, the same things run through my mind whenever I'm being pulled over, those stories are a little bit harder to tell because you have to be really careful how you cross those lines, but they have to be told.
And I want to ask you about that. Black in media today, what's your thoughts on that?
It's very slim. And I'm going to say this right now because it's funny. It's a funny story. Whenever we're looking for a different job, a few of my friends and I'm also a part of the National Association of Black Journalists, NABJ, and I've made a lot of friends within that association. We always look on the station's websites. Every website has a talent page, and you can scroll through each talent to see who's actually working for that station. And it's hard to say this because that's what we have to do as African-American reporters and journalists. We look to see how many other Black people are working at that station. And if there's not any at all, and really if there's not any Black males, then our chances have just shot out a whole lot better now. So we have a chance to actually get hired and go on to that station. If there's too many, then you're not going to get a chance and you're not going to get an opportunity. They do not bring in too many at a station at a time. So we call ourselves the tokens, and we hate using that term, but it's absolutely true. We need to have more diversity, I feel like, within the industry, not just with African Americans, but with all different races, Hispanics, Asians. You need all of those people to be able to tell the stories. Like I just mentioned earlier, going into those communities, people will relate to you better if you look like them. And if you're able to understand what they've gone through within their past, their childhoods, because everybody pretty much grows up the same whenever you're in that certain type of ethnicity. And you need that within the newsroom. You need diversity. You need understanding. You need Caucasians. You need Hispanics. You need Africans. You need Asians. You need all of it to be able to better storytell. And I think that we need to push a little bit more with getting our African Americans in, particularly African American males. There was just an issue about the female natural hair. Female broadcasters were upset that they couldn't wear their natural frills, their natural curls on air. They had to get it straightened and processed. And now it's starting to really take off that no one can discriminate against natural hair. So now, as long as it's presentable, they're letting female African Americans wear their natural hair on air, and it's beautiful to see.
Let's talk about what's history and current. Particularly, I grew up loving, there was only like a certain amount of African American females on camera. To be honest, I cannot say one, except for we had Angela Pace here in Columbus, Jerry Ravish, and then Oprah on a national level.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about that?
It needs to continue progressing. And I think whenever you have that, they serve as the role models. What I think that people need to look at, they need to look at those African Americans, look at Oprah and see what she's doing. How did she make it so far? There was one quote that she said, and I love it, and I love it till this day. And that's why I think she's such a huge role model. Before she got to national TV, she only had like a local daytime talk show. And before she started branching off to a national station, she was doing an interview just like how we are doing now. And the interviewer asked her a question, and he said, "What do you think about your show going national?" And she responded saying, "Well, it's going to do well. I know it's going to do well." And he responded back by saying, "But what if it doesn't?" And what she told him was, "If it doesn't, I will still do well. A show does not define me. Programming does not define me. Going national will not define me. I'm a strong Black African American woman, and whatever facet that I do within my life, I'm going to do well at it." And I think that a lot of African Americans need to look at people like Oprah. They need to look at people that are really making strides within the industry, whatever industry it may be, not even just media, and take tips. Maybe even send them a message and say, "How did you do it?" And they have books, they have speeches on what they did to make it to where they have to be. And all we need to do is open our ears and listen.
I hate to keep harping on this, but do you think a lot of times we don't see ourselves on television or even behind? Because even there's a push for more color behind the cameras. Is it because we don't own studios or radio stations? Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
That is a big part of it all. I've been in the industry for over a decade now, and I've only had one African American owner. But the problem with sometimes with those African American owners are that they get color washed. So they still do not represent African Americans the way they should. I was really excited. And I'm going to mention the company because I always keep it factual. It was Bayou City Broadcasting. It's owned by a Black owner. And when I saw that he was taking over the company from Nexstar, I was excited about that. I said, okay, we can really now voice our opinion. He's going to understand what we're going through. We're going to start seeing more diversity in this newsroom. But I then became to start seeing that the only thing he saw was green. That's the only color he saw. If he didn't care what was happening at the company, he didn't care what was happening at the station. As long as it was making money for him, that's all he cared about. Looking at that aspect of it is we need to remove that color shield and really start showcasing ownership and Black owners being in this company, hiring more people behind the scenes of those certain talents and certain ethnicities, and hiring more people in front of the camera with those skills, and really making sure that they're protecting not just African Americans, but everybody in that station. If you have positivity within the world, then everybody will do well. And after my nephew passed away, that's what I wanted to make sure I focused on, that we continue to wake up every morning, every day, as if it's not a regret. And I wish that everybody can take that same aspect into mind as well.
Let's talk about your teaching.
Oh yeah. the good old teaching. It's been a while that I was thinking about teaching and getting into that field because, like I said, my teacher saw something in me, one of my role models, Dr. Cable, and I wanted to give that back. He helped me put my foot in the door, and I ran with it after he did that for me. I went to speak at the Ohio Media School. They asked me to come and speak there to some of the students. And we gave a really good inspirational speech. I also do spoken word poetry. So I wrote a poem and I presented that poem to them. And it was all about determination, motivation, inspiration, and really showcasing what they can offer. The students then reached back out to the education chair and asked if they can get me back there as an instructor. And I said, oh God, I've never taught anybody before. I know how to teach myself, but I don't know how well I can do teaching other people. And the first couple of days, the first couple of weeks, it was a little intimidating, but I knew that I was there for a purpose. After I saw the determination of the students' eyes and how they spoke and what they really wanted out of life, it showed me that they're there for a reason. They could be anywhere else. They could have been somewhere on the side of the streets doing illegal things. They could have been in somebody's store robbing it, but they're here to learn and to get an education and break into the field so that they can make a better life for themselves. And for me to be a part of that really makes me feel good about it. So teaching has been great. I've been feeling really good. I teach entertainment media and audition materials, something that I'm really passionate about because it helps them get into the field, giving them what they need and what they need to know. And I keep it real. If you do not have the look, we need to change it. If you don't sound right, we need to change it, because sometimes until you're at that level, until you're at that Oprah level or that Shaquille O'Neal level, you have to fit within a certain box before you start branching out into your own brand. You have to figure out that this is what they want me to do. I need to be able to do that until I'm able to get to a platform to where I can then be myself. And I feel like I'm at that place right now because I don't accept the job unless they let me be me.
Let's talk about CASA.
Oh yeah. So CASA was a program that I decided to join after my 2-year-old nephew passed away from child abuse. That was a huge shock for my family and I. And we didn't know if we can make it through. I was in college at the time. I was getting ready to drop out because I was frustrated. I was angry at the world. I was angry at the people that done it to them. I was thinking a lot of very evil thoughts would run through my mind, and I couldn't concentrate on school. I couldn't concentrate on my career, my internship. So I dropped a few of those things. I dropped the internship. I dropped out of college for a semester, and I had to enroll in anger management because I was so angry at the world for what had happened to him. I mean, he was just a pure soul, just a lot of laughter and joy. And I don't have any kids, but whenever my brother had my nephew, I took him in as my own son, and we would do every single thing together. So when I saw him going through the pain that he was going through, that also had me go through the same type of pain. And I had to find a way to get back to where I knew I should be. So CASA came about. I was browsing on the internet and I saw that there was an organization that reaches out and protects foster care children from abuse and neglect. And I became an advocate for them. I started reaching out to some families. I started mentoring some of the foster kids. And the whole purpose of that program is to be their voice in the courtroom, be their voice when they can't have one. Because a lot of times, a parent or a foster parent can look at the kid and they will not say a word because they're terrified of what will happen to them when they get back home. And you've seen stories in the news all the time where kids are trapped in basements, they're malnourished, they're not being fed, they're having to use the bathroom on themselves because they're not allowed out of that closet. And hearing those stories made me so angry, and I had to do something about it. So joining CASA, the Court Appointed Special Advocates, was a way for me to not only protect these kids, but to pay honor and respects to my nephew who also had passed away from child abuse. After advocating for about 2 years, they hired me as their communications director. So we made sure we did everything that we could with getting out the communication and recruiting more advocates to come and protect these kids. And till this day, I still advocate for that program. I still advocate for the nonprofit, and I've been doing it for about 7 years now, and it's going to continue.
So where do you see yourself in the future? What you're doing?
My goal would be to work for Good Morning America. If I can get my stories on a national platform, I think that's going to really showcase young African American males what they need to do. And I really want to open up a center to where I help them. A lot of people say you just need to be yourself, but right now in this day and age, you have to have that switch that you can turn on and off sometimes. It's important because when you walk into a professional setting, you can't go in there and speak the way that you would speak to your 17-year-old friends or to your cousins back home in the slumps and areas that you know how you would speak there. You can't speak like that in a 5-Fortune company. So you have to be able to turn it on and off because they're going to view you in a different light. It's the same thing they did with Trayvon Martin. It's the same thing they do with some of these national sports anchors, and the same thing they did with me. I don't dress in a suit every day, all day long. I like to throw on a hoodie and walk around comfortable. As soon as I get to Walmart or Target, I like to throw on something comfortable to walk around in. But some people don't know what you do whenever you're working within the industry you're working in, whenever you wear the type of clothing that you wear. So it's the same thing with speech and presentation of yourselves. You have to be able to turn it on and off whenever you walk into certain places. So if I can take my career and get it to a national platform to where I can really reach a broad and mass audience, and then have that as a protection zone for young African American males, that will be a dream come true.
So, did we talk about Word Up?
Not yet.
Let's talk about it.
Word Up is a part of the program that I started with CASA. Not CASA. Word Up is a part of a program that I started with my fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi, and it's been really, really great. It's been working with young males and females from all different ethnicities and backgrounds on speech and vocabulary. So we enhance their speech, we enhance their vocabulary, we make sure that they have words that they're able to use and articulate to people whenever they get into any type of professional business setting. If they're interviewing for scholarships, if they're interviewing for job opportunities, they're able to articulate themselves better. So that program takes them through a summer-long process. They have a lot of activities. They have a lot of professional speakers that come in and showcase what they can do, what they need to work on to get them to the point to where they need to be. So Word Up has been in existence for about 3 years now, and we're going to make sure that it continues to move on and move forward with what we're doing. It's been some positive work. We go through a lot of high schools, a lot of junior highs, and programs like the Boys and Girls Club, and try and recruit different people and different students within our program.
Okay, 2 more questions. What would you tell your 16-year-old self if you go back here to college?
My 16-year-old self, that was a bad boy. We had a lot of fun when we were 16 years old. If you can probably remember too, got into a lot of trouble, but it was part of the learning process. If I could tell my 16-year-old self anything, I would always have to go back and say, work on your finances. Think about saving early, because now as an adult, there's bills that come out of the woodworks that you don't even know about. And sometimes that's a big part of the issue with people's professional growth and personal growth is finance. And if I could have gone back to when I was 16 and really focused on saving and investing in myself and not going out to the parties and spending money on the nice clothes to try and impress other people, really just focusing on being myself, saving for my future, and being happy with the person that I am. Because back then at 16, I was doing too much to impress other people and fit in. I used to have these really thick glasses looking like Steve Urkel. I had really bad teeth. And my mom used to buy all my clothes from FUBU, and it would be the off-brand FUBU. So I got picked on and clowned a lot. And after I started figuring out how to use the money that I had to buy me some really name brand clothes and fit into certain groups, that's what I started doing. And a lot of that money went down the drain to please people that I'm not even friends with today. So if I can go back and tell this person, this young bad boy Joe Sam, get your finances together and stop trying to please other people. That would be the two things that I would have to say.
And I'm going to ask this question.
Right.
So, Michigan, OSU, Southern.
In Grambling. Those four schools, I compare MSU to Grambling University. I compare Southern University, which is the school that I graduated from, to our great school here, Ohio State University, because the rivalries between them two are so similar. We have fun in it all because we like to pick and joke with each other, but I'll always root for Southern University, and now that I'm here in Columbus, I'm going to always root for Ohio State University. Crazy thing is that I used to live back in Michigan as well when I was reporting there for the Lansing station, and I hated the football teams there. It was a lot of crazy stuff that was going on. I would go to the games and I would root for them, and they would always let me down. And when I would try and go and root them on, they wouldn't even want my advice or my help. So the people here are more accepting. The football players here are more willing to listen to advice. Even if they lost the game, they still are walking off the field with a smile on their face. And that's what I like to see, the confidence in them, because they're going to come back next time stronger and harder, and they're not going to let anybody hold them down. So I say Southern University and Ohio State are definitely similar within that aspect. And we also have players that play for both teams within LSU back in Louisiana and then here. So we got that connection. We got that bond.
Thank you, Joe.
Oh, thank you.
Wow. Man, you were like preaching. I was like, what? Wow. Can I get an amen?
Oh, no.